I have a bone to pick with the New York Times. Every time I see an article involving e-bikes, there's a very insidious slant. Take this article, for example. There's a pair of sentences in there that just really makes my blood boil. The e-bike, a model made by Rad Power, had a top speed of 20 miles per hour, but his route took him on a busy road with a 55 mile per hour speed limit. While turning left, he was clipped by a Nissan van and thrown violently. The burning question is never addressed. Why did this kid's route require him to interface with 55 mile per hour traffic? It's not about the safety of the bike, it's about the safety of the route. The article goes on to describe the boy's fatal injuries, then cast the blame on the e-bikes themselves. Quote, "The e-bike industry is booming. But the summer of 2023 has brought sharp questions about how safe e-bikes are, especially for teenagers. Many e-bikes can exceed the 20 mile per hour speed limit that is legal for teenagers in most states. Some can exceed 55 miles per hour. But even when ridden at legal speeds, there are risks, especially for young, inexperienced riders merging into complex traffic with fast moving cars and sometimes distracted drivers. You know what? You can get a learner's permit at 15, restricted driver's license at 16. Some states, you can get a learner's permit as young as 14. So, what's the argument here? That 15 is too young to deal with traffic and fast moving cars? By that logic, let's raise the minimum age to get a driver's license. If 15 is too young to deal with fast moving traffic, let's ban teenagers from driving faster than 20 miles an hour. Again, they already stated that the victim was struck by a van, but here they are blaming the kid for not being able to deal with fast moving traffic, not the driver of the car, nor the car itself, and not even a whisper of what if we put in separated bike lanes so that our children don't have to cross the fucking highway on their bikes? The New York Times even quotes a police officer saying, "It's not like a bicycle, but the laws are treating it like any bicycle." I can't help but point out that these e-bikes are still bikes. Full disclosure, I ride a similar model of bike as the one in the article, and it's limited to 20 miles an hour. But as anyone who has ever ridden a bike downhill before could tell you, it's very, very easy to reach speeds that high on a regular bike. I spent many days in my childhood rolling downhill doing exactly that. The issue isn't that e-bikes, or regular bikes for that matter, are dangerous. The issue is that we are so resistant to addressing the giant tanks we've grown accustomed to driving everywhere. For example, it costs a fraction to build and maintain protected bike lanes when compared to typical car-dependent infrastructure. And doing so will literally save lives by a factor of as much as 90%. So why don't we? Why don't we? If you ask me, it's a matter of visibility. No, not reflector vests. We need to publicly demand better bike lanes. A 2021 poll of Seattleites showed 71% of residents support physically separated bike lanes, even if that means removing a lane of traffic or parking spaces. And yet, Seattle is cursed with a sprawling network of disconnected bike lanes, sharrows, and painted bicycle gutters. Every human life has value, and I don't mean a dollar value. That kid who was killed by a driver had his entire life ahead of him, and it was cut short by our blinding love of cars. Unfortunately, it's not just the New York Times who does this kind of subtle e-bike fear-mongering. I've seen these kinds of articles from most major news corporations. And unfortunately, all I can do is call it out when I see it. Fun fact, Murder is legal if you use a car.